Typhoid Jack by Stewart. I need a cold, and I hear you're the man who can give me one. She reclines in her high-backed chair comfortably. I half expect her to kick up her black pumps on the desk. You my man? Depends. Bernadette Maud is an older woman, mid-50s at least. Her forehead and cheeks are stretched unnaturally tight, but her eyes have a half-closed, dreamy look. Probably all that liner and eyeshadow weighing them down. Her thick black hair is just as manicured as her fancy black suit. Her bangs are cropped in an even line across the middle of her lineless forehead. Not one stray flyaway in that glossy black head of flat iron straight hair. She has all the look of a sculpted hedge. Money? She asks. Money's only part of it. Because money isn't an issue. I said, money's only part. A chirping alarm fills the awkward silence. Pardon me. She taps some hidden button beneath the desk that silences the alarm. A circular hatch the size of a tea saucer opens and a small bowl emerges from the desktop, an ashtray. Inside, a single cigarette and a lighter. Hope you don't mind. I only get one of these a day. She closes her eyes and sighs with her first long drag. A ventilator whirs the life overhead. You're lucky to get even that. How'd you manage? She rolls her eyes flippantly while exhaling. The farmers and I have made arrangements. I shifted my seat. Speaking of that, oh, don't worry. The room's clear. I'm allowed 60 minutes of unsurveilled time a day. She inhales again. Before she was strung tight, on edge. She's much more relaxed now. She continues. The farmers might be a lot of things, a pain in my ass for sure, but they don't break deals. I know that better than anyone, but then again, so does she. CEOs, managers, presidents, and any other poor saps crazy enough to try and be leaders of industry, they're my bread and butter. Not the most numerable of my clients, but they have the money, and it pays. They comprise over half of my monthly revenue. Can't hold it against them. These people have more reason than anyone to get away. CEOs have had it hard since the assessment. Maud is certainly the most high-profile client I've ever had. I decide it's worth my while to see it through a little longer. So, what's the other part, if it's not money? Maud leans back in her chair again and flicks ash messily. A few flicks drift down to the polished black desktop. They stand out starkly. She doesn't move to sweep them away. I shift my weight again. Tell me, what sort of cold are you after? She smiles and exhales slowly. Something with a low incubation period. I need to be down for a full 24 hours. Down, but still able to function. I can manage that. I need it 2 days from now. Doable. How will you infect me? An aerosol, a little square no bigger than the tip of my thumb. We call it a stamp. Just rub it between your fingers and give it a deep whiff. I demonstrate. Easy enough. I'm in and out of the office in less than 10 minutes. I'm afraid we have a bit of a snafu there. You wouldn't make it through inside the building. Sensors will pick up any pathogens that come in within 20 feet of the complex perimeter. She leans back in her chair after ashing. More stray white flecks litter the desktop. Your apartment, then? She shakes her head, grins slightly, ironically. Not possible. Why's that? Because it's not. I need you to infect me here, Mr. Lowe. She sits up, a dissatisfied grimace on her face, and stamps out the cigarette vigorously in the tray, stirring up a cloud of nearly weightless ash before it retracts. A ring of white remains on the otherwise immaculate desktop. I resist the urge to wipe it off with my sleeve. I may be wrong, I say, bringing my attention back to the matter at hand. But this sounds awfully like a rock in a hard place. You're supposed to be the best. That's why I called you. I was dearly hoping you could find a solution to my little conundrum. I stand and button my suit jacket. You're looking for a typhoid Mary, Miss Maud. I don't do that. And even if I did, you'd still face the same issue as before. A communicable person wouldn't make it past those sensors any better than a stamp would. As I said, I'm prepared to pay well. You'd have to. It's impossible. Is it? Her smile is unnerving. Her eyes peer out at me from behind those heavy, slack eyelids. Intimidating. I'd never met her before now, but heard enough about her when I was still chief of peace in the city. A shrewd woman. I can tell she isn't used to failed negotiation. She isn't playing straight with me, I know, but money, that's something she has. And she seems to be in desperate enough a situation to make it worth my while. You haven't left yet, Mr. Lowe. Perhaps it's not such an impossible feat. How much? Her smile becomes pleasant. You're a man who knows your business. Your reputation precedes you. Name your price. She strums her long manicured nails on the black mirror-polished surface of her desk, her proposal still lingering in the air along with the cigarette smoke. I can see what's floating around down at the schoolyard. Can't promise I'll find a solution to your problem, though. You'll try your best. What's your price? $600K. She doesn't even flinch. Instead, she pulls a plain data sheet from her desk drawer and plucks a stylus from its cradle on her desk, then slides them both across the wide table. She's a short woman, so she has to stand up in order to reach. Give me an account number, and I'll transfer half now. I sit down again and start scribbling a long series of numbers, but stop halfway through. The ring of ash trembles with every slight movement of my arm. Something nags at me. Humor me, if you would, Miss Maud. Why do you really need the cold? Why here? And only here? She stares me down again with those drowsy eyes. All that money I'm paying you should purchase a bit of privacy. Goodness knows I get very little of it. She has a point. I scribble the rest of my account number down on the sheet, then slide it back across the table with the tip of my index finger. Wednesday, she says. 1 o'clock. Here. I stand and brush off my jacket. I make sure to use my sanitary kerchief to grab the doorknob. I do it fast so she won't notice. I don't think she does. So, you've got to infect someone, and that someone is stuck inside a complex with pathogen sensors and said someone can't come outside to play. That about right? The man on the other side of the pane of acrylic glass carefully replaces the stamp he's been examining beneath his scope back into the foggy containment freezer. That about sums it up. It's certainly possible. His voice is fuzzy and a bit distorted through the speaker mounted on the wall above me. You'd have to play a Mary to make it work. You figured as much. He closes the freezer top with a well-placed elbow and peels the gloves from his hands. Thought you didn't, do that. Apparently everyone has their price. How can it work? Easy. There won't be any sensors inside the complex, just around it. Why monitor a whole building for virulent germs if none are allowed in the first place? Just expose yourself to the pathogen right before entering. Takes a while for the virus to incubate. The sensors won't pick up such a low replication of the virus, then take the inhibitor right after infection to allow you to exit. I shake off my hat and run my hand through my hair. That's the kind of common sense thinking I haven't been capable of for a while. Maybe I'm losing my edge. My hair looks messy in the reflection, but doesn't feel oily. I try to straighten it. Well, that part was simple enough. Now we just need the right germ, something with a fast incubation. You know, I got the best schoolyard in the city. Really fast, Jorge. Got really fast. I need to be communicable within half an hour of exposure. Jorge looks up and pulls the white mask from his mouth, which hangs slightly open for a moment as he thinks. Nope, got me there. He grabs the half-eaten sandwich on the counter beside him and takes a large bite. I almost can't watch. He scratches his head and talks with his mouth full. I can double check. The speaker crackles and falls silent. All I see is Jorge's moving mouth and his expressive facial features. I point to my ear and shake my head from side to side. Jorge reaches up and smacks his end of the two-way speaker system, which abruptly fixes the problem and also clears the static. You should really just come in here, man. These are the oldies. Nothing here you aren't immune to. Thanks, but I'm happy where I'm at. He takes another bite. Your call. Anyway, I can double check my inventory, but I'm pretty sure I don't have nothing that incubates that fast, not even the nasty stuff. Could you whip me up something special? When do you need it? Wednesday morning. He laughs and pops the last bite of sandwich into his mouth. It's a short turnaround, I'd say, but the money will make it worth your while. Who's the client? High profile. We'll keep it at that for now. He licks mayo from his fingers while he thinks. I think of every germ, every bacterial organism, every molecule dancing the tango on his tongue. I can manage something for you. The client needs to be down and communicable for a solid 24 hours. Still functioning, though. Like me to bake you a blueberry pie as well? I'm partial to strawberry rhubarb. Jorge tells me to check with him tomorrow afternoon and pulls on the very same pair of latex gloves he's been wearing only moments before. Maybe not the most hygienic of people, but Jorge is the best bully in the business. He's an enthusiast. The panacea has all but wiped out most sicknesses. People like him want to collect them up before they disappear completely, which is a good thing for people like me. You need to be able to piss away a day now and then, an excuse to be lazy or to give it less than 120%. That's a harder thing to come by since the farmers started running things. A new level of productivity was required of society when they came on board. Most of the time, that's a good thing. Not all the time, though. And that's where I come in. There's still no cure for the common cold, and as long as that's the case, there's a tidy profit to be made in my profession. And I need as much as I can get if I'm going to escape this hellhole of a city. The door to my apartment hangs ajar when I return. I don't own a gun anymore. You'd be hard-pressed to even find a gun in the city. Instead, I reach in my coat pocket and grip the fist-sized bar tightly. Works the same as a roll of quarters did back when I was a kid. This is what passes for being armed these days, the old iron knuckles. The world's a strange place. I find her sitting patiently, legs crossed in my worn-in leather recliner. 17. To what do I owe this pleasure? I throw my coat across the back of the couch, take a seat, and start to work on my shoelaces. We've missed your conversation, Jack. Right. I step into the kitchen, open the tap, and soap up my hands. I can still see her from where I stand. Your lies could use some work. She smiles flatly. Her visage flickers. We'll be the first to admit that lying is still the most puzzling aspect of human behavior. We just can't quite get a grasp on it. I dry my hands with a tea towel. Shouldn't try too hard. That's the only thing I like about you farmers. Straightforward, honest. She smiles again. It would be eerie if I weren't used to it by now, the effect of the visage cycling like that. Better than the alternative. People just aren't ready to see an alloy-plated android strolling about town. So let me ask you again, what can I help you with? We were reviewing bank accounts today and stumbled across yours. Business must be good. Hey, I thought we had a deal. You don't monitor me, right? My payback for the transition, remember? We monitor all transactions of 100,000 and over. Her hands rest folded in her lap. She doesn't touch anything. I love that in a person. The money wasn't the only reason we came tonight. Our records show that you visited Helicorp today. Before you ask, we're currently keeping Miss Maud under observation. I visited at her request. She uncrosses her leg, smooth legs, and crosses them again the other way. Listen close enough and you can hear a faint, high-pitched servo whir. More organic than mechanical, really, just a faint whistle. May we inquire as to what Miss Maud had to say? No. She smiles. Her visage is attractive. No denying that. Long blonde hair, tanned skin, slender waist, appropriately short pinstripe dress suit, the perfect blend of casual and professionalism. Why the interest? I ask. The electric kettle bubbles in the kitchen and I get up to steep a cup of tea. Miss Maud has been officially remanded to her offices for the past week. That's a bit more hands-on than you guys normally get. She has a duty to the shareholders as well as the public. Helicorp is the biggest producer of genetically modified crops in the United States. On Thursday morning, the Helicorp board will hold a meeting. A government oversight committee will be present. They'll be voting for a change of leadership in the company. They mean to remove Miss Maud from her position as CEO, and she knows it. I can't blame Miss Maud for wanting to dodge that bullet. And you're thinking she won't take the news well? I ask. We're hoping you can help us with that question. The light from the end table doesn't fall as it should on what's supposed to be your skin and clothing. The alloy beneath reflects some of the light, takes away some of the depth of color in her visage. Your presence was intended only to maintain the peace, stop burglaries, murders, whatnot, help us keep the food supply up. Hands off in matters of high-level politics and business, though. That was the deal. Seems a bit like you're meddling here. Our duty is to be caretakers for this city and its peoples. This duty extends into all areas of society. We step in when and where we're needed. Why are you even telling me this? We're hoping that if you know the full story, then you might rethink whatever it is you're planning. Not planning anything, just having a chat. She isn't buying it, but her brows are slightly furrowed. After a moment, I recognize it as a look of disappointment that could have rivaled my mom's. That's the one thing about farmers. It doesn't take them long to learn. 4 years since the transition, and they've almost seamlessly ingrained their consciousness and position into the city. Give them another few years, and you won't be able to tell them apart from a human. Not in manners, anyway. We would appreciate it if you would let us know of her intentions, if she happens to disclose them. Your business is your business. We don't interfere with your industry. We'll continue to respect your choices, and we won't impede them. You know we honor our arrangements, though perhaps you'll take some advice. Here it comes. Whatever your dealings with Miss Maud, be cautious. You're dreadful at lying, but you've nailed subtlety. Bravo. I dunked the tea bag up and down into the liquid to make it stronger. You want to tell me what's going on? Consider your arrangements carefully. I tell her that I always do and blow some of the steam off the cup before taking a careful sip. She stands and approaches the bar. I hear the same high-pitched, near-silent whir as she moves. We know how much you want to leave the city. By our calculations, you shouldn't be too far away from the goal. What with this extra money? That's your way of saying you'll miss me? She no longer finds me witty. Of course, you can't tell from her face, that's always pretty much been expressionless, but I've dealt with her long enough to learn the more subtler clues. All the human attributes go away when she gets down to business. All machine. We don't monitor you, and we won't. But we do ask that you mind the laws. We can't do anything about it if you're caught breaking them, you understand. Understood. Good. 17 smooths out her dress. Her visage flickers again and catches a glimpse of silvery composite titanium underneath. I walk to the door and open it for her. Though we will miss you when you go. I'm not gone yet. She smiles. Yes, as attractive as they come, but not real. I lock the door behind her and then return to the kitchen to wash my hands. We'll need to give the virus a few more minutes before, let it incubate, I say. The blinds are drawn, the air still reeks of a recently smoked cigarette. That's fine. We still have a little time. Maud mixes a drink at the wet bar, a whiskey and soda by the look of it. Care for one? I feel sleepy all of a sudden. The virus is already doing its work. I'll pass on the drink. Sure about that? She cocks a dark eyebrow my way. I'm willing to use a credit, and you turn it down? Water. She shrugs and returns with 2 tumblers in her hands, ice jingling about. She hands me the clear one and then lightly touches the rims in a half-hearted toast. To your health. Her wink is little more than a heavy-lidded twitch. She closes her eyes, takes a long, savoring sip. I feel as though I'm intruding on a deeply personal conversation between 2 long-lost friends. So, can you answer a question for me, Mr. Lowe? I check my glass to make sure it's clean before taking a sip. I nod my consent and find a seat. Is it true that you're the one who handed the city over to the farmers? Wasn't me alone. No, the whole city council approved it. I was an advocate of the commissioner's position regarding the farmer solution from the beginning. Suppose you could say I was the one who sold the cause to the council. As the chief of peace, my opinion held some sway. She nods and takes another sip. You aren't asking why I did it. Oh, I already know. This city was about to tear itself apart. Food shortages, riots. I don't blame you for your decision. We needed someone, or something, to take over or we wouldn't have survived. She takes another sip and stares off. And the farmers have certainly done their job. The tone has a bitter twinge. They have indeed. My mouth is dry and I feel a sudden chill. I take a long drink of my water. Do you regret your decision? I'd asked myself that question before, numerous times over the last few years, but no one else has ever had the balls to ask me straight up. No, not really. It's a better city now, better than I could have ever made it. She sees that she stumbled upon a sore spot and changes topic. And how did you get involved in this sort of business? I was granted immunity from the farmers' monitoring when I signed over control of the city. My wristcom chimes. It's time. Maud places her drink on a glass-top side table and approaches me slowly, almost seductively. If her squat body frame could have pulled it off. Before I can move, she grabs my tie, stands on her toes, and kisses me deep, tongue and all. I taste the ghost of her cigarette and whiskey. She pulls away as quickly as she struck and wipes her lips with the back of her hand. I wipe my mouth with my kerchief and pop a white pill in my mouth. I hold out another white pill sealed up in a small plastic baggie. You'll want to take this in about 20 minutes. She examines it. What you've got is a modified pathogen, a blend of a common cold and a hemorrhagic fever. This little white pill will inhibit the virus before it develops into its full nasty potential. You'll be just sick enough to be considered legitimately sick. Low-grade fever, slight cough. You'll be fatigued and a bit achy. Still functioning, though, just as I promised. It's panacea resistant, so you're stuck with it until your body kicks it. No more than a week. What happens if I don't take this little pill? You'll begin bleeding from your eyes in 24 hours. You'll be dead in another 12. How dramatic. She takes a seat at the corner of her desk and punches a few buttons on the console built into the middle of it. I've just transferred the rest of your money, Mr. Lowe. Congratulations on your newfound wealth. Much obliged. I wipe the sweat from my brow with my kerchief. Can I ask you something now? Shoot. Why have the farmers remanded you here? This board meeting you've got coming up tomorrow. It's going to be bad news? She takes a sip and swirls the ice around the glass tumbler. Probably. Being sick, you know, it might delay things, but it's no permanent fix. She finishes her drink in a final swallow. Mr. Lowe, I built this company from the ground up. It's mine. Her eyes shine. People want to take it from me. That's the nature of business. But don't think for a moment that I'm going to just let them push me out without a fight. I've worked too hard. I push down the uneasy feeling brewing in my gut, the feeling that I may have made a mistake. It's just the bug. Another alarm chirps from Maud's desk. This is different from her cigarette alarm. She presses an index finger against her closed lips and then points upward. Her 60 minutes of unsurveilled time is apparently up. She turns. Now, if you'll excuse me, Mr. Lowe, I think we'll have to finish up our conversation some other time. I'm beginning to feel a bit peaky. I don't wake until midday. My wristcom says it's Thursday. I haven't been sick since my teenage years, but I remember all the terrible things about it and all the reasons why I never chose to play a Typhoid Mary before now. Even after sleeping through an entire afternoon, night, and morning, my headache and fever aren't much better, but at least I can think. I don't waste any time. I have $600,000 more in my account. $200K of that goes to Jorge. A hefty sum, but he's earned it, and something tells me he'll need it. But $600K, along with the near million I've squirreled away over the past few years, finally will be enough. Escaping the city is an expensive venture. I contact the land acquisition clerk and put down the entire payment for my own 50 acres in the shadow of Big Sky. I pay the developers for my permits to homestead. I've had all of my exit visa paperwork ready for approval for months now, and I can finally submit it to the city now that I have confirmation of my deeds and permits. It takes less than 5 hours to follow through with almost 10 years of planning. I eat light and go back to sleep on the couch. The fever breaks during the night. I rise the next morning, damp and smelly with sweat. I take a long, hot shower that uses up 3 days' worth of my weekly water ration. It's worth it to feel this clean. I'm still drying off my hair when I find 17 sitting in the same reclining chair in my sitting room. You don't waste any time, she says. Her expression is difficult to read as ever. Your paperwork, you've already filed. Just yesterday, I bought my land and got the permits to homestead. Now I get to wait for however long it takes to get my approval to leave the city. She holds out a tan envelope. Your exit visa is approved. You don't waste any time either. We expedited the process for you. Guess I should thank you. I take the envelope and thumb through the small, few thin, near-translucent sheets inside. Tell you the truth, I'm surprised what with the whole Maud thing. I was wondering if you were here to arrest me. I suppose the cat's out of the bag. We've taken Miss Maud into custody. Since when do the farmers arrest someone for being sick? Something is different about her. The subtle expression on her face seems more human. She seems more human. We placed her under arrest last night for attempted manslaughter. 10 of the 12 board members in attendance at the meeting yesterday have come down with an extremely virulent unknown pathogen. They're currently in intensive care and under quarantine. 4 of them aren't expected to survive the night. I sit down. We've also picked up your colleague, the epidemiologist Jorge Alvarez. He's agreed to help us treat the condition since he engineered it. We're sparing him incarceration in exchange for his assistance with this matter. However, we've confiscated his collection. And here I thought I had been careful. The board member's getting screwed over. That was bad news. But I didn't know then. Jorge, I know. I respect him. And thinking about getting him nailed to the wall makes me feel small. I look at 17 sitting there, unmoving as always. But everything has changed. There's a new complexity in her expression that I can't place. I'd give anything to know what she's thinking. I'm not sure why I even care, but I do. What about me? Her face twitches. Perhaps a flicker at her visage. I can't tell for sure. We're certain you expected that Miss Maud only wanted an excuse to leave the complex and miss the meeting. That's your normal modus operandi. For that reason, we know that your hand in this ordeal wasn't intentionally malicious. However, we tried to warn you what she was capable of. I rub my eyes. You're right, you did. The air between us goes still. It's time for you to leave, she says. You have your permits and visas all in order. We want you to leave the city, Mr. Lowe, immediately. She pauses for me to speak. When I don't, she continues. There was a time when you sacrificed much of your life and energies toward the betterment and health of this city. For that noble service as Chief of Peace, we extended to you a promise of freedom and immunity. As of this moment, that offer is officially retracted. Wait. She stands and heads for the door. You have 2 days to vacate. If not, we'll place you under arrest for your complicity with the Bernadette Maud situation. Wait. She doesn't. I grab for her arm and part of my hand disappears into the visage. I grip the cold alloy beneath, but my hand doesn't stop her. I have to let go before it breaks. She opens the door. We appreciate all you have done in your service for this city and for all the help you've provided in the transition of power. For the majority of our time together, it really has been a pleasure to work with you. There's another small, cryptic expression on her face now, eyebrows up. Her eyes are wide, her lips a straight line. More emotion than I've ever seen expressed in her face before. Not anger. I think it's supposed to be sadness. I almost apologize, but stop myself just as the words find my mouth. I needed the money to get out of here. I need to get out. I don't think you'll ever understand that. She doesn't blink. Her visage flickers. You've taught us so much about human nature. I lean my head against the door frame. I want to tell her something that might make her feel better. Farmers can feel, there's no doubt about that now. I want to say something to reassure her, but she knows the difference between truth and a lie by now. I've taught her